Well, hey there, ladies and gentlemen. JD here with Timber and Anvil. Welcome to my shop. So I've done a couple full-length videos here in the past, but format probably admittedly wasn't very good, and subsequently, nobody really watched them. There was a lot of the last full-length videos I've done were probably like transition points where I did a few videos out in my last location where my shop was, which was in a lean-to facility. It didn't even have four walls, and I was essentially working outside just with a roof over my head. And then I did some videos there where I was building a forge, which is frankly this forge I'm standing in front of right now, a phase of it. This I think is the final destination. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, since then I've pretty much primarily focused on doing shorts because obviously it's very easy to put those out. I get pretty good view numbers on those in my opinion, and largely I haven't done many full-length videos because it's return on investment sort of thing. The return as sort of a YouTube content creator, and I'm not trying to make money off of this. I have a full-time job that pays me well enough to cover the bills and have fun. I'm doing this just to kind of share what I do and maybe educate people or get criticism, etc. But the return is getting views, and the investment is the time that I spend in editing the videos, filming the videos, demonstrating the project, so on and so forth. And a lot of times on those earlier videos, I would spend like 6, 7, 8 hours working on editing to get 2 or 3 hours of content whittled down to sub 15 minutes, which would get theoretically better viewership, and I would end up getting like 6, 10 views. So it really didn't feel like it was worth it. So I just kind of focused on doing shorts. But anyhow, I'm trying again. I've got a camera. It's connected to my phone, so that makes things a little bit easier on my end because I can remotely control the camera. I can actually see what you guys are seeing right now because I've got a display on the camera. Pretty nice now. So I think that helps significantly with the editing side of things. So without further ado, I'm not going to try and make a short video here. I'm not going to try and do a sub 10-minute video to cater to people that don't have a attention span. I'm just going to basically share what I'm doing, what my shop situation is, and if you stick around, I appreciate it. If you don't stick around, well, I'm sure there's plenty of other videos you can watch. So there's been a lot of changes in my shop since the last time I did any sort of a video here, and we're going to go ahead and walk through that a little bit. So what we have here is a Series 1 J-head Bridgeport vertical milling machine. These are ubiquitous in pretty much any metalworking shop, blacksmithing, welding, fabrication, etc. This is a machine that I acquired from the widow of a very good friend of mine. His name was Andy. He passed away a little over a year ago, August of 2024. And this was his mill, and I don't know how long ago he purchased it, but yeah, I purchased it off of his widow and subsequently went through quite a bit of restoration work on it. It ain't perfect visually, but operationally it's pretty much as good as I would ever need. I had the whole thing disassembled. This section here, the sort of bottom, is called the knee, like your leg, knee. I had this whole thing off, which is 300-pound piece of cast iron, and I cleaned up all of these ways and all that stuff. So it was pretty rough cranking it forward, backward. So I had the saddle off. That's another 80-pound chunk of cast iron. The table here is 280-pound casting. I had all of this disassembled with the help of my cherry picker engine hoist, and just cleaned the heck out of everything using chip brush. These things are beautiful. That with some mineral spirits and an old toothbrush really does a great job of degreasing. I absolutely love it. It's a great way to clean things without scratching. If you use a rag, you might rub and abrade with little bits of metal and abrasive that's in there as you're trying to clean it, but with a brush, you just brush everything away with the solvent. So I got everything cleaned up. It functions beautifully. Very happy with it. It's rigged up to a VFD over there, just an automation direct, because this is a 3-phase machine, and I've already done a few projects on it, and I love it. It's tremendously valuable. I used to be a machinist back in 2004 and 5, and I've been wanting one of these since then. So it's been 20 years I've been waiting to get one of these. So that is that. The other major upgrade, which I am not able to capitalize on just yet, is this. This is a A-frame DuPont Fairbanks 50-pound power hammer. This also was my friend Andy's. He purchased this off of a historic blacksmith shop about 20 miles roughly east of me called Clinton. It's fully operational, and Andy used it quite a bit in a lot of projects. He made some dies for it. When he purchased it at auction from that blacksmith shop when it shut down, he got a few dies from there as well. I'm not going to be able to use this until I, cut a concrete pad for it, which is likely not going to be until, I don't even know, likely early next year. My 2025 is pretty much booked out every single weekend for the rest of the year with family and friends projects. But yeah, I'm going to have to cut a 30-inch square pad and dig down to get a foot deep, a foot thick pad, and then pour quite a bit of concrete in there with isolation material all the way around it, so that when this thing's thumping away on material, the impact and the vibration from that is not, causing other stuff in my shop to vibrate and fall off of where it's sitting. So that's kind of a critical parameter for operating a power hammer, is you need to have a solid base on it that's isolated from the rest of your building. Otherwise you're shaking the entire concrete pad, which you can already see is cracked in plenty of places. So that's that. Also from my friend Andy is this absolutely gorgeous 175-pound mouse hole that he did a absolutely incredible restoration job on. You've probably seen videos in my shop of me with this 210-pound double horn, English style double horn that was actually featured in a Christ-Centered Ironworks video, where Roy Adams of Christ-Centered Ironworks, ironically, this is stuff that I bought off of him at SOFA Quad State Conference. He and my friend Pat forged this tapered cone and welded it on there. Patrick had bought this anvil from SOFA Quad State back in 2022, and the whole tail section was busted off. It was traditionally a single horn with a traditional London-style taper tail with Hardy and Pritchell. Since it was busted off, he ground it clean, forged this section because he has very large power hammers, and he welded that all on there. But he and Roy Adams worked on that together. However, I really need an anvil with a Hardy and Pritchell for sort of my main shop anvil. This will still get used. It'll sit next to the power hammer when I sort of declutter things further. But the mouse hole here that Andy restored, he left a few spring swages and tools like that for hardy work. So this will be very valuable in that regard. I've already done a little bit of forging on here. I made a bottle opener, which I donated to Indiana Blacksmith Association. Anywho, last thing to cover before we go ahead and start pounding on iron. There was a surface grinder over there. That's another project. I got this for free at the SOFA Quad State Conference. This belonged to a member of the Indiana Blacksmith Association. And when he was trying to unload it, with the help of a friend of his, that friend dropped it twice in 2 different planes. Dropped it forward, and then in trying to pick it back up, dropped it sideways. So it took some damage. The oiler is completely trashed. And the X-axis crank, which I have this obviously partially disassembled right now, but the X-axis traverse that drives the table left and right, that shaft was broken. So I machined a new shaft, not done yet, but mostly done. I can get that assembled. And then this crank was broken. I just modeled up my own crank in Fusion 360 and 3D printed it and machined this tri-keyway stainless steel insert that actually couples to the shaft, and it's awesome. I'm super happy with it. These marks there's 100 of these all the way around, and these represent half a thou graduations, which is consistent with the original wheel that was on here. So progress, but the spindle coupling, where the spindle couples to the motor in the back, is obviously damaged, and we have to take that apart. So that's going to be a project for another day. Induction forge. We can't forget this. I know I've done videos on the induction forge. It used to sit on a bench back by where the Bridgeport mill is now, but a few weeks ago I built this cart for it. I'm super happy with it. I've got a drawer for tools, extra coils, etc. I've actually, fun fact, I've got stuff in here from Derek Melton. So Derek Melton himself demonstrated on this induction forge for our conference. I hired him out to come up to Centaur Forge in Burlington, Wisconsin. And yeah, as a result, he forged some of these articles, which will be auctioned off at our club's conference in February. So yeah, these all have his touch mark and one of his bottle openers. He did a phenomenal job, and it's kind of cool. I can say Derek Melton demonstrated on my induction forge. I'm super happy with how this cart turned out. And now the last thing that we're going to cover is the forge. So last time you saw this forge, it was just a sheet metal bottom to it, and the fire pot was that guy down there. So that's a fabricated fire pot from a friend of mine. The air inlet of that fire pot is like 1.5 inches maybe, and then it has a clinker breaker in the middle of it that's choking off a lot of that. So that forge is great for small stuff, but as I've been exploring the beautiful world of axes lately, it's just woefully inadequate. I can't get enough heat. So now I've got a full-size fire pot. This came from another member of our club who's kind of a legend in canister Damascus, and he used to use this until he went full-blown on the canister Damascus thing and pretty much only uses forced air propane nowadays. So he hadn't used this in quite a while. So I put this thing together in my forge, and I decided with Black Bear Forge's beautiful forge top with fire brick or whatever that he had on the top of it, I thought that looked beautiful. And so I kind of took that idea along with my experience in Denmark. Back in March, I saw some of their roads are essentially a bunch of brick with sand in between the brick. So whenever they have to do road maintenance, it's super easy. They just take the bricks out, dig up all the sand, do the road work, and then put the bricks back in sort of a lot of their streets have like a decorative arch sort of fashion to them. And then they just brush the sand all back in place and the road's good to go. And I figured that's a pretty sweet idea. So I just used a kitchen sieve that I bought from Target and some play sand that I got from my big box store. And I sifted the sand so it was nice and fine so it would fill in all the voids in between the bricks. And I got the bricks it's fire brick from a big box store, Menards in my area. And yeah, they cut like butter with an angle grinder with a masonry attachment. And I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to go ahead and fire this up for the first time now. So I figured I'd capture that on video, and we'll get this all completely dirty with coal. So let's get to it. So I think it'd be pretty appropriate to light my first fire in this new forge the old-fashioned way. Flint and steel. So this is a Viking style flint striker. Kind of looks like a Viking ship that I forged. And there is, so fun fact on both this and the flint here, I took a class by Lars Morsch, who's from Denmark, far northwest Denmark. Unfortunately, I didn't get to visit him when I was there because I was kind of focused around Copenhagen. However, he came over here a couple years ago and did a class with Rick Fair up at Door County Forge Works and did a class on forging these Viking style flint strikers from mild steel, and then we carburized them in a carbon rich environment. Basically made a kind of like canister Damascus, where you fill a steel tube with crushed up charcoal and then these things, and you cook it in the forge at roughly 1600 degrees Fahrenheit for 90 minutes, and you have a fantastic flint steel because the carbon gets absorbed into the steel matrix at those temperatures. The crushed up charcoal it gets oxidized because there's oxygen in the can, so it gets oxidized to carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, and that's able to exchange into the steel matrix, and you get essentially like 1095 performance from mild steel, and that's how these would have been made back in the day. So I've got some char cloth here, and this flint is from Denmark, so that's exported. My sister and I went to Mons Klint, which is southeast Denmark, right on the ocean. Absolutely gorgeous white cliffs, limestone cliffs, and a fun geological fact is flint is naturally occurring in limestone-rich areas. And yeah, that's when I was walking along just in the parking lot, ironically, when we got to Mons Klint. I got out of the car and I looked down and I'm like, holy smokes, that's a gorgeous piece of flint. I picked it up, figured nobody's going to miss it, put it in my pocket because it's just in the parking lot. And yeah, then all of a sudden I took another step and, there's another gorgeous piece of flint. Put that one in my pocket. And yeah, that happened a bunch. And then I started realizing there's flint everywhere. It's the most beautiful flint I've ever seen, and there's lots of it. And then, yeah, when we got down to the shore, it became very obvious that there's flint everywhere. So I took a little bit of that home. That's probably good enough. Turn our blower on. That might be too much air. A lot of smoke, not a lot of flame. There we go. It took me long enough. I got some cardboard and plenty of paper towel and some chunks of wood. The coal that I have is arguably the worst coal you could possibly get. I've had excellent luck making extraordinary clinker out of it. It works, but the clinker is extraordinary and really makes the whole process kind of a pain, especially to get started. But if you're good at keeping your clinker managed and you add some wood to get it started, you'll be alright. Alright, lost you guys for a little bit there. My camera overheated, which is weird. That's never happened before, but fire's going. It's going to be a little bit before we have this up to an operating temperature, but we should be alright. Let's go ahead and add a little more air. I'm going to go ahead and manage this and get a little more coal on here and get back to you guys when we have a fire that's actually ready to start making something. So what's the first thing we're going to make on our new forge here? Generally, a good piece of advice for a coal forge is to have a fire poker, and that differs a little bit from fire pokers that you'll see with like a fireplace. So fire pokers with a fireplace will typically have an extra hook coming back so that you can, poke a log and pull that log back a little bit and manipulate the fire. Fire poker for a coal forge is literally just a straight point. So we're going to use a railroad spike just because why not? We do everything with railroad spikes, right? It's a very common thing to make knives, tomahawks, whatever. And I got a few of them. So we're going to do a simple twisted handle and draw material out for the spike. It really doesn't need to be long. So the handle, obviously we're just going to kind of keep that about that long, and then this material here is just going to get drawn out to a nice long taper, maybe 8 to 12 inches long. And so let's go ahead and get cranking on that. Now we're going to start out with a 4-pound hammer, just because we need to move a lot of material. So the first order of business is establishing that initial taper. And we got it. So now we'll just draw the rest of that material out. So like I said, this coal that I've got is pretty terrible. It generates more clinker in 90 minutes of forging than good quality bituminous coal would generate in roughly an entire weekend of me forging, demonstrating 8 hours a day. It's anthracite coal, and pretty poor anthracite at that. I got it for free from this widow, and I got close to 700 pounds of it. I've just been suffering through it. Free coal is, I guess, better than no coal. And I mean, it gets things hot, so that's kind of what's important. The clinker is definitely a problem though. You may have seen this forging style demonstrated by someone else, where I'm drawing it out aggressively at the corner of the anvil. And yep, Alex Steele does drawing out this way, because he learned that from a living legend, Brian Brazil. Well, I met Brian Brazil at SOFA. If you don't know what SOFA is, you definitely need to look into it if you're interested in blacksmithing. So SOFA stands for Southern Ohio Forge and Anvil. They're a affiliate blacksmith organization of the Artist Blacksmith Association of North America, ABANA. I am the president of the Upper Midwest Blacksmith Association, also an ABANA affiliate organization. I've been president for 4 years. That does not mean that I'm a good blacksmith. It just means that I stepped up to the plate. The old president stepped down because he was in his late 70s at the time, and well, nobody else stood up. So I'm doing what I can to move the organization forward. So if you do not know your nearest ABANA affiliate, go to abana.org and abana.org, and they have a directory on there where you can look it up. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I made the mistake of not doing that, and as a result, I'm not nearly as good of a blacksmith as some people who've been forging half as long as I am. You grow as a blacksmith largely by the same way you grow in anything else. By finding somebody who's better at it, becoming a friend and a student, and learning. Didn't take a lot of heats to pull that out. Still got a little more I'm going to draw out. We'll make this a little bit thinner. The area here that I have for the handle is pretty much perfect. That's what I want to leave for my handle section. But we're just going to draw this to a little bit smaller cross section and round it out. So my blacksmith club, the Upper Midwest Blacksmith Association, primarily focuses on central and southern Wisconsin, southeastern Minnesota, and eastern Iowa, and northern Illinois. And we currently have around 250 members. We have 3 conferences every year, one in Illinois, one in Wisconsin, and one in Iowa. The Wisconsin one just concluded 2 weeks ago as of recording this. We had Derek Melton as demonstrator. He, as I mentioned earlier, used my induction forge. I'm actually going to draw it on the anvil horn now because I don't need to be quite that aggressive. I'm close to my desired final length. That's a lot better. So anyway, yeah, our club's next conference is coming up the 3rd weekend of February, and that's going to be in northern Illinois, so South Beloit, Illinois, and you can look that up on Facebook. We have UMBA, UMBA on Facebook, and we also have a website, umba-forge.com, and we got a calendar of events and everything there that's usually kept up pretty well. So I myself personally did not find any other blacksmith except YouTube until I've been doing this for 7 years. So I essentially was self-taught, you know, again, just by YouTube for my first 7 years. And I would very strongly discourage anybody from making that mistake. Because your development and skill is incredibly slow. There's you know, you come up with a problem, you have a question, you can go ahead and post a question on Black Bear Forge, and John Switzer's pretty good about getting back and responding, but invariably that type of response is probably going to leave you with other questions, and you go ahead and continue asking them. He is probably not going to have enough time in his day to answer all of your questions on top of the other hundreds of thousands of subscribers on his channel. Now, you replace a John Switzer or a Torbjörn Ullman from Sweden, replace that with a person that you're actually there with one-on-one, who's been forging for years or decades. Yeah, go figure, you're going to learn a lot more. You can ask all the questions you want, and they're willing to support your growth and your development as a blacksmith, and to you know, help you enjoy the hobby and get a lot more out of it in a much shorter period of time. I got cut off there a little bit from my battery dying on my camera, so So now we're on my phone. So I lost a couple heats. But anyway, I think I was kind of talking about the benefits of joining a blacksmithing club, because my first 7 years was entirely alone. Project here, we're rounding it out. I got the length that I want. Pretty happy with that. I'm going to round out by the shoulder here a little bit better. Kind of develop that taper. And I think at this point I'm probably done with heavy moving, so I don't need the 4-pound hammer anymore. I found another blacksmith doing it, and he was a member of UMBA, still is, an older gentleman, and he told me about a even better farm show closer to my house where I had moved to, and from there I went to that one and met a whole bunch of friends, and actually the guy that introduced me really to everybody was the gentleman who I got this anvil from, his widow. And when I was at that farm show, that was my first time seeing a power hammer in person. So imagine blacksmithing as a hobby for 7 years, seeing all these power hammers on YouTube, because every YouTuber almost has one, or two, or six, and you never even seen one in person. And then all of a sudden you find this organization where you can hop over to somebody's house on a weekly gathering and take your pick of what size power hammer you want to use. Can't recommend it highly enough. I'm not trying to sell UMBA because I'm the president. It's a non-profit. I don't get paid to do this. I do it because I'm passionate about it. But I'm saying all this because I think it's going to help you out if you find yourself in a position where you've got a club nearby. And online is really a tremendous resource to find those people. So if you're looking into this seriously as a hobby or a profession or a jobby, as some people call it, maybe a hobby where you generate a little bit of revenue but it's not your primary source of income, then seriously, go online, go to abana.org, find yourself a nonprofit, an Abana affiliate in your area, and get connected with people. Right now I'm planishing this. I'm very happy with the length that I've got. I don't even know what that is. Let me get a ruler. I wanted like 8 to 12 inches is what I said. I have 10 and a half. Not bad. And plenty of material here for a handle. Keep in mind, I mentioned earlier we're going to do a twisted handle, and when you twist a handle it gets shorter because just take a piece of rope. When you twist a piece of rope it gets a little bit shorter every time you twist it. So this handle is currently maybe a ½ inch longer than my 4 fingers. That's pretty good. I'm very happy with how that turned out. I'm going to go ahead and chisel some slots on all four sides in order to accentuate that curve, or that twist, and we will get the show on the road. These tongs are no longer appropriate, and let's go with these gnarly fellas. This is a very early pair of tongs. My oldest surviving pair that didn't break. These are horrible. Almost sharp square corners. Terrible fit. The boss is extremely thin and super wide. These are so ugly, but I can't let them die because so much history in these. And they still holds on to a piece of metal. Those kind of remind me where I was. I made those tongs probably 10 years ago. Alrighty, I've got a little hot cut here that I forged with the help of a friend of mine. Get this in good contact with our anvil. It's pretty good right there. Take another heat to get a little bit tighter to the head. Pretty close now. I want those chisels to be, the grooves to be pretty deep. The deeper they are, the more it accentuates the twist. It almost makes it look like there's when I chisel all four sides, it'll almost look like there's four bars that are independent of each other. But I don't want to I don't want to chisel all the way through. We're just going down maybe 1/8 of an inch. Hang the head off so I don't mush the head against the anvil. We've got a clinker up against there, don't need that. We're going to come here about in the middle, and we're just eyeballing all this. Pretty good. Try and bring it up to the same point where the other one is. A little bit further. Pretty good. And we'll walk it back. A little annoying that it keeps wanting to twist on me when I do that. back. Make those a little bit deeper. Wait for those to fall. This is more of a cold cut than a hot cut based on the profile, but it's doing the job. I really need to forge a proper slitting chisel. That looks pretty good. Do another side. Another thing I really hate about this coal, and it's a byproduct of anthracite in general, it doesn't really matter what grade it is as far as I know, you really can't use a beautiful hand crank blower like this. This is the Champion 400. I absolutely love this blower, but it is really no good for anthracite. Anthracite needs constant airflow. With a hand crank blower, you're going to get airflow as long as you're cranking on that, and when you take your material out of the forge and you're spending 1 or 2 minutes at the anvil, your temperature in your forge drops substantially with anthracite, whereas with bituminous coal, it holds that heat a lot better, and it comes back up to heat a lot faster. It is what it is. It's free coal, and I've probably still got about 300 pounds left. But it's hard to argue with free, right? I should be grateful. Side's done, and that's just one more side left. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's a straight line right down the middle on all 4 sides. Got this side left to do, and then we'll twist it. On the subject of clinker, I just pulled that out and there's still plenty more in there. This is about what I would get after 8 hours of forging with good quality bituminous coal. And we've only just been working on this for, I don't even know, 40 minutes maybe. There's still plenty more in there. What clinker does is it chokes off your forge, your fire. It is basically a bunch of glass and impurities within the coal. It's just a part of the ore and where it's sourced from, and you know, the kind of vein that it came out of. And all those impurities in there basically turn to a glass-like substance, and it just melts and starts to accumulate down at the very bottom of your forge where the air comes in, because where the air comes in is the coldest part of your forge. The air, obviously, room temperature incoming air. I don't even, my shop's not even heated, so it's like 40 degrees in here or something. That keeps the bottom of the fire pot cool, and so all that glass solidifies, and it starts to, one, choke off the air altogether. This forge has a clinker breaker that'll break it up in the immediate vicinity where the glass comes in, but as this sort of glassy clinker accumulates, it begins to basically grow the fire bigger than it should be, where you would normally have your fire centered about the blast and radiating out, you know, a couple inches all the way around. With clinker, well, now all of a sudden the blast is getting redirected through these other channels that the clinker is permitting, because it's blocking other pathways. It's blocking the straight up pathway. It begins to make your fire a lot bigger and, relatively speaking, colder than it otherwise should be. So if you're trying to do a large scale forge weld, you're going to really struggle. Fortunately, we're not doing that right now. So, but otherwise, you have to just be very adamant with cleaning out your clinker and just kind of dealing with it. There's really not much you can do as long as you've got crappy coal. Good. Just walk it back. I don't think I got this one quite perfectly centered, but it'll be close enough. And it'll look fine when it's twisted. Alright, that'll do it. Not quite cool enough to hold on to for a long period of time, but kind of see what I got there. So now we're going to put it in the leg vise over here. I'll refocus the camera and we'll twist it. All right. Not too bad. Straighten a little bit. I know this is a pipe wrench. It's going to bite into the head a little bit, but this ain't for sale. This is just for me to use, so I'm alright with that. I left my the right tool for the job. I left down in my basement. Yeah, we got to straighten that a little bit. You can see it's got a little curvature that way. I've got a wooden stump over there, and we will use that and a wooden mallet so we don't booger up the twists. And from there, that should be pretty good. I might come back and clean up the shoulder a little bit where the handle meets the shank. But otherwise, I'm quite happy with how that looks. Alright, so I straightened it out on a wooden stump with a wooden mallet. I forgot to hit record. Sorry, you can use your imagination at this point. We're going to do a little hot brushing and clean up that transition point from the handle to the shank. Just a little hammer for this. Really don't need to do any heavy walloping. Make sure this thing's reasonably straight. So when you get it to a point where all I'm doing is just hitting it with a wire brush. And what I'm doing here is the exact same thing I would do if I was making a steak flipper. The only difference is I draw it out a little bit longer than this, just to get the end user a little bit further away from the grill. And then I put the little curve in the tip of it. But otherwise, this whole process is exactly the same thing. My problem with steak flippers is I keep on making them and then giving them away. Probably somewhere around 6 or 8 that I've given away, either to friends or donated to my work for like fundraisers and stuff like that to be auctioned off. I never actually make one for me. That's pretty good. Alright. Now we'll get it up to a nice scaling heat and then we'll hot brush it until it's a dull red. And that's usually a pretty good way to get a nice finish on our work. You can see as we're brushing it, more scale is forming. So we just keep on brushing as we go until we get below that scaling heat. And what we're doing with the brush is we're improving the surface finish of the final piece. Because all these little high carbon blades of this brush kind of act like little files. And they work to smooth it out and get rid of rough spots. It's hard to hold on to with these cracked tongs, but we're getting it. And it looks like I was a little too aggressive and bent it a little bit. some of that straightening was for naught. Alright, so I finally straightened out the head. I ended up, you might say, thinking outside the box and heating it up in the forge like this, just so the head got hot and the rest of the handle didn't. And straightening out, I got a little bit of a whoopsie in there. And it's almost perfect. I like that a lot. I'll take it. I'm going to do that. Close up. I do need to brush it a little more, especially on the head. The rest of it, I'm fine. I don't see a lot of scale on the rest of the handle here. Go right at the head. A little gnarly. Hopefully you guys can see that well enough. Alright, so I punched off the handle. At this point, I think I'm good. I'm going to just planish cold the rest of the shank. I don't know how much good I can do with this. Not bad. So we'll just go ahead and planish that. We'll reduce our error and we're going to planish with a nice light hammer because I don't want to move a lot of metal. When you planish material, you're really just moving steel on the outermost surface of it. The heavier your hammer is, the more that impact force goes to the middle of your material. So if you're using just a light hammer, you're more so just impacting the surface. And with planishing, you can get a very, very nice finish if you're patient enough. See how nice and smooth that is as compared to where I haven't planished it. Makes a very, very nice difference. I'm not going to bore you guys with all that, so I'm going to pause it and get back when I'm pretty much done. Alright, you can see, just depending on good light there, that we've got a pretty nice sheen all the way around. Feels good in the hand. Very, very happy with how the handle turned out. I got the head squared up quite nicely. So let's go ahead and use this for the purpose for which it was intended. I'll bring it up by the forge and show you. All right, you're about to witness really bad clinker. Helps when you shut the forge off and let it cool for just a few seconds. You stop seeing flames coming out the top. And what that does is it helps to solidify the clinker so it comes out more of a chunk than a whole bunch of little bits. Here's another chunk that I pulled out about 15 minutes ago. All right, fire's pretty much died down. I'm coming in at the corner of my anvil here, or my forge here. You can see, oh, look at that. There's another nice clinker. There's some little bits of clinker. And these little bits of clinker will eventually melt and fall down toward the tweer where the air is coming in, and then they'll conglomerate with other. Oh yeah, we have a nice one in here. I didn't get all that one. There we go, there's another nice chunk. And this is all clinker on top of the two nice big gnarly bits that I pulled out. I showed you guys earlier. Oh yeah, another nice one back here. Again, this is more clinker just from this one little project. Really hot getting close to this than I would get in an entire weekend forging all day Saturday, all day Sunday. You can see this is straight up glass right there. It's like a long hair of glass. Really incredible. Oops, I did not want to do that. So you will hear other YouTubers say that you cannot forge weld if you've got clinker in your fire. I've heard some people say that clinker has impurities in it, and those impurities get into your forge weld and contaminate it. I'm not going to stand here and call anybody a liar, but I don't think that's accurate. And that's certainly not accurate from my years of experience, because all of my forging at home, which I've done plenty of forge welding, very successful forge welding, has all been done with extremely heavy clinker generating coal. Because up until I found this blacksmithing club, I did not know a proper source of coal. And heck, I didn't even know what good quality coal even looked or behaved like. Nuances like that you really can't get from watching on YouTube. So the reason why people will say that you can't forge weld if you have clinker in your forge is, I kind of touched on it a little bit. It's that your clinker contaminates, or not really contaminates, but it blocks airflow, or it restricts airflow, or it redirects airflow. Instead of coming straight up from the blast, from the tweer, it comes in channels a little bit this way and a little bit that way, and makes a much larger, colder fire. So you don't get as localized of a heat. So it would certainly confound a larger scale forge weld, such as if I'm trying to forge weld a folded construction axe, it's definitely going to be a little more difficult to do so if I have a boatload of clinker in there. I am well aware of that, and so it just becomes a matter of when I'm at that point and I know I'm going to be doing a large scale forge weld, I have to be adamant about cleaning the clinker out of my forge before I try and take that weld. Otherwise I'm going to have problems. And that's unfortunately just life, as long as I've got this coal. And like I said, I got probably 300 pounds, roughly, more of it. This is really going to be hard to focus on, but there is a hair thin glass. Trying to get it to focus on that. You can kind of see it right there. I just broke it and I dropped it. Dang it. Yeah, so that's a wrap. I'm not gonna beeswax this or anything. This bit's definitely gonna be too hot right now to touch, but I'm not gonna beeswax it. I might hit this with boiled linseed oil. I really like that as a finish. Actually, that's the finish that I applied to the anvil. But pretty happy with that. That's a simple fire poker for Blacksmith. I previously did the job of a fire poker with my coal rake, but this section down here was, the thinness of it was perfectly fine for raking coal, but it heated up and burned like all hell when I tried getting down into the bottom and breaking up clinker, and so that ended up breaking. I haven't hit this with a grinder to redress that. I'm not going to bother trying to forge it. It's been heat cycled so many times it could probably break further. But there you go. There's a Blacksmith's fire poker. Very, very handy tool when you have a simple coal forge like this. Allows you to get down in there, break up clinker, and there you have it. Hope you enjoyed. I'm going to call that a wrap. It's my first video in my new coal forge, and I'm extraordinarily happy with how this forge works out. It is absolutely a game changer. I can get pretty much this entire thing up to a welding heat. I could not do that on my previous fire pot there. So thanks for watching. It's probably a really long video. I'm not going to try and shorten it. You're either going to pay attention or you're just going to scroll around and not. It is what it is. Enjoy. Hope you guys are able to do some forging on your own, or as I mentioned earlier in the video, do some research and find a blacksmithing club in your area. It will be the most valuable thing you do in your blacksmithing career, is making friends that share your hobby. So take care. That's it.